Today I'm going to show you how we empty our hot water heater. This is something you might want to do just to flush it out if it's been sitting for a long time, or like I'm doing for us today. We're about to head out on a trip and I just want to reduce the weight of the trailer before we get going. The most important thing I want to mention before we get started is that you should never empty this when the water's hot. So make sure that the heater's off and it's cooled down. You can turn on one of your hot water faucets. I actually do the outdoor shower just to make sure that the water in there is not hot. And that's for a couple reasons. One is that water will get extremely hot and scald you as you're doing this, so you want to be really careful there. And number two, it is hard on the water heater to be hot with no water in it. So you definitely want to let it cool down before you do this. You will need a 1 1/16 inch socket and then a ratchet, or I'm just going to use a breaker bar. I have a deep socket, which you'll need for the clearance here. If you don't have a deep socket, you will need an extension so that you can get it in far enough to actually get on there. The other thing for safety is you don't want to stand right in front of this as you're doing this. If for some reason the water is hot, it could come out and scald you. Or if you don't release the pressure right, this thing might come flying out and hit you. So make sure that you stand to the side as you do this. All right, I'm set up off to the side now. Like I mentioned, you don't want to be right in front of this. And the two things we're going to be doing is releasing the water pressure valve and then actually taking out the anode rod. I should mention though, before that, make sure your water's off. If you're hooked up to water, turn it off. If you're pulling from your fresh water tank, turn your pump off. Otherwise, it's just going to keep feeding water into the water heater and you won't ever get it emptied. So the first thing we'll do is release the pressure. And now that there's pressure off the tank, we can remove the rod. The pressure release actually does a couple things. For one, it makes it so that when you take this out, it doesn't come flying out because the pressure's already been released. It also allows it to drain better. If this was closed, it'd be harder for there to be air going in to actually let this drain, and it would really glug out. So that's the reason you do those two things. So we're just gonna let this drain. When it's done, you just put the rod back in. And then put the pressure relief valve back in place. So now we'll be a bit lighter as we tow our camper today since we've emptied this. I will link to the tools I used, the socket and the breaker bar in the description. One thing I do have to remember when I do get to the campground today is I need to put water back in the hot water heater before I turn it on. Like I mentioned earlier, it's bad to have that on with no water in it. So once we get hooked up to water, basically what I'll do is I'll just turn on a hot water faucet until I start getting water, and I usually just do that on the outdoor shower because that's the easiest and most convenient one. Just let that run until you start getting water to come out, and then you know your tank's full and you can turn your water heater back on. If you have any questions, let us know in a comment. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Consider subscribing and giving this video a like. Happy camping, and thanks for watching.